Hey, everybody, off the Mike Sports Network here. So the NBA playoffs, well, the play-in structure, we still don't know who the seventh and eighth seeds are going to be in the playoffs. But we do know all the other seedings going into this thing 1 through 10 and how this thing is going to shake out. So a lot of storylines to cover, but I'm going to talk about something from a major market team who had a ton of expectations is the 3 seed in their own conference did not win a single game against the top 3 teams in their conference and had a improvement of a whopping, get this, 1 win, and that is the New York Knicks. The New York Knicks, given the fact that they traded 5 first-round picks away to their crosstown rival Brooklyn for Mikal Bridges. Mikal Bridges played all of 6 seconds to continue his start streak. Some people didn't like that or not. And then they traded for Karl Anthony Towns, one of the better players in the NBA, giving away Julius Randle, Dante DiVincenzo, and some other, I think some draft picks. And I can't remember the trade. And all of that to finish third in the Eastern Conference and, have one more win than they did last year. And their defense has kind of regressed. I know they didn't have Jalen Brunson there for a while, but the biggest thing that you need to know, and then I'll kind of get to my point here, against the Cavs, the Thunder, and the Celtics, they went 0-10. 0-10 against the 3 single best teams in the NBA. Yet they're they're the 3 seed, and they're taking on the Detroit Pistons in the first round of the playoffs, which is going to start on Saturday. By the way, low-key, that series is going to be a banger. Remember the series that they had we thought was going to be interesting against Philadelphia in the first round? That's got this feel, and I think the Pistons could actually win this series because they're going to have the best player on the floor. Whether you Knicks fans like it or not, Cade Cunningham is coming, and I would take Cade Cunningham over Jalen Brunson, even though Jalen Brunson has more of a track record in the playoffs. I would take Cade Cunningham as the better player. If you want to talk about playoff performers and experience, Knicks have the edge, no question. But the Knicks are in some trouble here because this is, and I mean, for God's sake, the Pistons beat them like last week. So the point here that I'm trying to illustrate is we talk about so many disappointing teams. We focused on a lot of the negative aspects of the season, like Philadelphia, all of the injuries and stuff. They don't even crack the play in. Phoenix, Kevin Durant, Devin Booker, Mike Budenholzer. They have Bradley Beal. They can't even crack the play in. But I think the Knicks are one of the more disappointing teams in the NBA because we thought that they were going to be the primary outside of Philadelphia, and Philadelphia had their issues. Outside of Philadelphia, and you got Milwaukee, Indiana went to beat them, but that was due to Jalen Brunson getting hurt down the stretch, and then that game 7 just kind of got away from them. But a lot of people thought that the Knicks were coming after they finished second in the East last year. They almost got to the conference finals. They had most of their core coming back, and then they make 2 just in some people's eyes magnificent trades, or big time splash trades. They get Mikal Bridges to add to the Nova 4, but then they turn around and trade Dante DiVincenzo like a couple weeks before the season, and it's for Karl Anthony Towns, a talented big, but you also lose Isaiah Hartenstein, who goes to the Thunder, and you can see that move has really hurt the Knicks. Mitchell Robinson didn't really play for most of the season until later on, but you're just starting to see, and then you take a look and you peel back all of the numbers and you look at this. The Knicks only won 1 more game than they did last year. We were everything that the Cavs did this year was what we expected of the Knicks to potentially make that next jump, maybe jump ahead of the Celtics and be the primary contender. Yet here they are. They're the number 3 seed in the Eastern Conference. They're facing a really talented and dangerous Detroit team. And I would not be surprised in the slightest if the Pistons went in there maybe in game 1, or if the Pistons ultimately ended up winning this series. This is going to be a dogfight, no pun intended, between the Knicks and the Pistons in round 1. And then if they get out of that, they're probably facing Boston, because I can't see anybody beating the Celtics, whoever comes out of the play, and whether that be Miami, Orlando, Atlanta, Chicago. Those are the 4 teams in the play-in. Like, it's just it's I think Boston is going to be there in the second round. So the Knicks, at best this season, in my eyes, at best this season, they're getting back to where they were last year. And they're going to probably get wiped out by the Celtics in the second round. Because it's hard for me to see, like, the Cavs have a chance, but they're fighting an uphill battle because of the Celtics' experience, their size, their versatility. Like, the Knicks are like, this is a colossal disappointment, no matter how you slice it. I would be stunned if this team got to the Eastern Conference Finals. I would be even more stunned and flabbergasted if they got to the NBA Finals, and I would especially be absolutely on the floor if the Knicks won an NBA championship. And if you were paying attention to anything that was going on in the offseason in the buildup to this, that was the expectation for this team. And then they make those 2 massive trades, Bridges and Towns, and it netted them 1 extra win. And what did that accomplish? And now you've got questions about the coach and wearing these guys into the ground. Jalen Brunson is not getting any younger. He's an older star. So you've got that. And it's just like you look around and you look at the rest of this Eastern Conference. The Cavs ain't going anywhere. They've got a young, talented team, and they finally found the right coach. Boston ain't going anywhere. I mean, Milwaukee may fade out, but it's just like the Knicks, for all the talk about all these other disappointments in the NBA, they're one of the biggest disappointments in the NBA because, hey, all it's going to come down to, can they defy the odds? Because right now, the way that this whole thing is structured out, they've got Detroit in the first round. They may not win that. They're damn sure not beating Boston in the second round if they face them. And then if you get past that, it's probably the Cavs. Who knows? Anything can happen if they play Indiana or Milwaukee in the second round. But they haven't beaten any of the teams like ahead of them. They haven't beaten really any of the teams ahead of them. And some of the other teams that they're going to be stacked up against, like a Detroit, they just lost to them. So if you're a Knicks fan and you want to keep just like dancing on people's graves and everything about, we're going to have a better thing, worry about beating Detroit. And then you might have to worry about beating Boston, which, you should have been in the conference finals last year. And, that was your expectation, was to compete for the Eastern Conference champion, get to the Eastern Conference finals, and maybe contend for the NBA finals. And here you are. We're potentially talking about a first round exit. So Knicks fans, reap what you sow, man. Like you guys wanted the star power and everything. You had a really good and, gritty, tough team. You went all in on a couple of massive trades. And what did that get you? 1 more win. And no wins against the top 3 teams in the entire NBA. So we'll see how it goes. But, I'm not going to be as bold as to say, Detroit's going to beat them. But I will not be surprised in the slightest if the Pistons win 4 out of 7 games and ultimately advance to the Eastern semis to face probably the Celtics. And that would be a hell of a series too. Like the Pistons, they're nothing to sneeze at. And I had a video about it, and I'm not going to be disappointed if JB Bickerstaff wins over Kenny Atkinson. Like the Pistons were one of the worst teams in the NBA a year ago, and here they are as a 6 seed, and we're talking about them potentially advancing around. That's incredible. So, yeah, like I said, this is really what this is about, the Knicks. But also, let's for a second acknowledge the fact, put up my one, as I always say that. Let's acknowledge that the Detroit Pistons are nothing to mess with. they like, not only did they get from being one of the worst teams in the entire NBA, they avoided the play-in, and they're the 6th seed facing the Knicks. And some people think, a lot of people, hell, even Stephen A. Smith, the biggest Knicks homer, is scared to death in this series. Scared to death. So just put that into perspective if you're a Knicks fan. If all that stuff that you had, that you made those massive trades after that, promising season last year and the promising last couple of seasons, and here you are, 51-31 after a 50-win season the year before. You get 1 more win, and yet here you are, you're facing the Pistons. Everybody's miserable. And you didn't beat any of the top Eastern Conference teams, and then, of course, Oklahoma City. 0-10. Prove me wrong. And maybe that changes the narrative of this season. But as of right now, before we even start the playoffs, This season has been a massive disappointment for the New York Knicks. We'll see if they can change that, but I don't have very much optimism about that. Anyway, thanks so much for watching. I will see you guys soon. Bye bye.